Hello, I'm Connie, and welcome to Lamp Unto My Feet. And tonight I want to share with you a word of encouragement. And it's a word I've been trying to get all night long, and I was in a different room, and I ended up here. It's a long story. Anyway, I want to talk about the Lord and how important faithfulness is to Him, and how we kind of measure ourselves by success, how successful we are. But to the Lord, success is faithfulness, how faithful we are. And if you go to, let's start it off, we'll go right into it. Matthew 25, where Jesus is telling, I loved how Jesus told parables to demonstrate what he was talking about. And he was actually, in this part, he was talking about the man who had many servants or several servants, and he gives those servants talents. And talents were, to my understanding, they were a unit of money. So he gave them this, and they ended up putting, investing them, except for the lazy guy, the lazy servant, who didn't do anything with it. He wrapped it up and he put it away. He didn't do anything with it. He just left it there. You were a heart man, and I just put it away. But Jesus, in talking and in quoting in the story, the master, in verse 23, he says a very famous scripture that we all love, that says, "His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord." He says that word twice. He says faithful twice versus thou good and faithful servant. And thou hast been faithful over a few things. It's like, it's like us when the Lord has us, when we're doing work in the Lord's kingdom. And, most of us are not going to be Christian recording artist who goes from city to city and sings, and that's wonderful. That's great if that's your calling, and if the Lord has allowed you to do it, that's great. But many of us don't do that. There's a lot of people who are secretaries to the pastor, or just a person who maybe gives out tracts, or maybe is someone who just will talk to a friend who they've been talking to on their regular job, on your lunch hour about the Lord. Sunday school teachers, people who work at, like me, at a crisis pregnancy, people who work in the food pantry, whatever it is that you do. A lot of times our ministries get derailed, or we get discouraged in some way because maybe we think that we're not doing anything. I'm just going there, and Lord, I'm just handing out groceries. I never really, I haven't led anyone to you. And we think that we are not a success. Well, look at the success of the world. It's totally different. The success of the world is by, actually, if you were to judge Jesus by the success of the world, he wasn't a success. The world wouldn't consider him a success. He never ran a big corporation. He didn't make a 7-figure salary. He was never in a movie. There weren't movies. He wasn't on a regular TV show. He didn't, he didn't hold public office. There's even a poem that's like that. He didn't have a place to rest his head. Jesus didn't even have that. And he hung out with fishermen. He worked as, before his ministry, he worked as a humble carpenter. And then he died. He was executed and treated as a common criminal. So the world wouldn't have considered him to have been a success, even though he succeeded in doing what he meant to do, what he came here to do, what he left his throne for in heaven. He succeeded, because he left that throne so that he could die for a world of sinners, many of whom are not going to accept or love him back. And then he rose again so he could conquer death for us. So that is a success. But he was faithful. He was faithful. He taught us to be faithful. And so maybe you don't think that you're doing anything. But if you're faithful to what you do, if you faithfully, even if you're, there's nothing that's an even if or a just. There's no just. Everything that God gives us to do is for His glory. Everything has its place in His kingdom. Everything works together. This person waters. This person plants. This person reaps the harvest. But we all have a part in God's kingdom. And He's just looking for us to be faithful. He's looking for us to show up. Like your boss, who you show up for work, right? What happens if you don't show up? Your boss is expecting you to come every single day. You come every single day, and you come and you do the work that was assigned to you to do. Well, God also, He calls us to do certain work. And we get discouraged. I get discouraged. I'm struggling with the certain work that I felt that God had given me, and I wasn't sure, and I'm back to praying about it. But I started to look at things that were not probably what I should have been looking at. And someone recently just said, "Oh, I didn't have a good day. I don't know if I'm saying what I'm supposed to say or doing what I'm supposed to do." Beloved, you're showing up, and you don't know what God is going to have. Whatever you've said, that word of encouragement, whatever that you have done, you don't know where that is going to go. Only He does. But we are just, whether we are discouraged or not, we show up. We come. We come and we worship Him. We are faithful to Him in going to His house. We're faithful in Him in our fellowship. We're faithful in ministering to someone else. Maybe your ministry is just to go visit people in the hospital and bring them something. Maybe you don't think that you're doing something because you're not actively sharing the gospel at that time. Maybe they don't allow you to do it, but you don't know what the Lord's going to do. We're faithful in a few things. We don't, not like the lazy servant that just wrapped it up and gave it back to the Lord. No, we invest it. We invest it. Because there's going to come a day when we're going to hear those words if we're faithful. Revelation, let's go to Revelation for a minute. Because that was the other scripture I wanted to share. That was Revelation chapter 2, verse 10. And in this part of Revelation, it's the beginning of Revelation where Jesus is talking to the different churches. And Smyrna, in this particular one, he's talking to Smyrna and Philadelphia and the other. I always remember Philadelphia. I'm from Jersey. But in verse 10, and I'll just read that part of it, he says, "Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life." Jesus is looking for us to be faithful unto death, or into the rapture, whichever should come first. If we don't wake up in the morning and the Lord calls us home, we're to be faithful until then. And we have the promise that if we're faithful until the end, that He's going to give us a crown of life. But we also have that blessing that we know that we're doing what our Master wants us to do. Because we are going to hear those words, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Enter thou, you've been faithful in a few things, I'll put you over many things. Enter now into the kingdom of your Lord." So let's continue. Let's not judge ourselves by a measure of success that doesn't really exist in the eyes of the Lord. Let's let Him be the one that judges that. Let's look through His eyes. And in His eyes, what matters is that we're faithful to Him, that we obey Him, that we He can count on us in that. Whether we feel at that moment that we can do it or we can't do it, we depend upon Him for everything. I depend on Him even with this. I've gone through so many different, I don't know if you want to call them takes of this video. And I kept thinking, oh, I can't do it. But you know, we continue to just be faithful. He'll give us the words when the time comes. He gives us the Spirit that helps us to do what we have to do. So my prayer is that this week that you carry that with you. I'm going to put these references and a couple more too into the description below. If you liked my video, you can hit like. If you didn't like it, you can do that too. If you have a comment or something that you want to share about how the Lord has encouraged you at a time when you were not encouraged, and that too. You don't know if that's going to bless someone else. And may you be faithful to His work, whatever work He has given you to do. Have a good night, and God bless you, and I'll see you soon.